Gentles and ladymen, I'm Spiro, and I'm not a wizard. Today I'll just go over what I've been doing in the last few days. I've taken a little break from doing demo coding and Vic and interrupt routines, as you saw in my last few videos. And I got the idea in my head that I'd write a machine language monitor for reasons. And it's going. It's I'll give you a look at what it looks like now. So it's called idlemon, because I mentioned in my last video, which you might not have heard because I hadn't figured out how to mute the audio on the application. Idle is a handle that I used in the 90s and early 2000s. Anyway, so that's where that name came from. A break has triggered. We've gone into the monitor. We can see the break flag has been set. So far it's not that functional. Like, I'm getting the basics, the grounding of it at the moment. So at the moment I can... I've got caps lock on. That's not going to work. I can press R for registers. I wonder if I should make it so that you can switch case. It's designed to work in a lowercase mode. I've got a routine which will print the memory, will do a memory dump, but at the moment I'm cheating, and because I haven't done the argument parsing yet, I've basically told it what memory address to start at, so I can do a memory dump. In the future I'll be able to go, like 4000-400C or something, and it'll give me a memory dump of those addresses. At the moment it doesn't. It has got predetermined list, but as you'll see, part of my debugging, I've got it printing out my arguments, and it's not printing both out at the same time. Like if I put memory 4000, 4010, 4020, at the moment I'm only reading 2 arguments, but if I type 3 arguments, it will print the first 2. So I've got still got some debugging to do. If you hit enter, it stays on the line. I think if you want to clear some of the screen, at least you'll probably just do that. To be decided anyway. So if I've also tried to figure out a maximum length of parameters, of arguments, and at the moment it's set to 6 characters. So that is buggy at the moment. So as you can see, even though I only put 2, it recognised that I had done 2, but it filled the first with correct number of characters, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and then in the next one we've got an issue. So again, still working on that. What else have I done? Oh, you can exit back to basic. Oh, well, look at that, it printed that out. Why did it do that? Oh, I've got some overflows happening somewhere. Cool. That wasn't supposed to print that out, I don't think. No. Huh. So we are in basic. This fully works. And the reason it says here sys8 to return, for some reason, everywhere I've read is that memory location 8 always seems to hold a 0. So running that, 0 is the opcode for the break command, so it will always trigger a break if you go to there. So if we sys8, it's triggered that. So that is weird. I don't know why. And I also don't know why the program counter jumps 2 bytes when you run that. So you go sys8 and you're basically saying go to memory address 8, which is only holding a single byte. Maybe the break command is 2 bytes. I never even looked that up. But it jumps the program counter up 2 bytes. So that's what it looks like. I'll give you a quick rundown of the code. Oh, you will notice also I ran it EXO, so I've actually eximized it. I've run it with Eximizer. So the normal assembled version is 1230 bytes. The eximized version is 976 bytes at the moment. Now the reason I did that was because if I put the normal basic header in, it adds, basically when you assemble it, your code starts at 0801 and then has got a whole lot of empty space up until the point where your code actually starts. Now I've got code at 9000 because it's a monitor. I wanted out of the way of where people are going to put their normal code and where they're going to play. So if I left this in, the assembled version ends up being like 30 something, almost 40k, and it takes a long time to start. So I took that out and then I use Eximizer, which crunches it and adds a start header. Oddly enough, it adds this, but does some magic and doesn't have all that dead space in the middle. So cool, I stick with that. That's me. I've got a few includes. I include some macros that are specific to this project and some general macros. Set a bunch of constants. I was also playing with, you'll see a lot of commented code in here, which is I've left in for myself. I'm not sure when I'll publish this to GitHub yet, not ready yet. I tried playing with storing stuff in, page 1, page 2, so that I could store things like, temporary storage for my registers and things like that. But for some reason, Vice had a CPU jam. And I don't know why, so I guess I'll figure that out one day. Initialization code, we print our title. We store our break vector. So we're basically setting an interrupt vector for when the 64 runs a break command, it will trigger this interrupt and go to this vector which is down here. So any break gets run anywhere in memory on the system and it'll fire up the monitor, which is the normal thing. Okay, so we read when we go into it, we read and save the program counters, stack pointer, things like that off the stack. So we read in all of these things here. This is the order that they put into the stack. When I believe when a break happens, all these get put onto the stack, and we read them back off in reverse order. So yeah, at the beginning it displays all the registers. We do a command query, so this is our prompt. I had originally used, have I still got it? Yeah, it's down here. I originally used a command query that was taken from my text adventure game, which is a lot more restrictive on what you can type in, and I used that until I wrote the one I needed for the monitor. I've got little tricks like this here where I set star equals star, so origin equals current location. Kick assembler will let you add in comments, name labels for origin lines, which is when you assemble it. If you do kickassmon.prg, oh, what did I just break? Line 1, column 1. Oh, I'll fix that. Line 1, column 1. What? What? There's some unexpected technical difficulties. Invalid token. Oh, you know what I did? I tried to assemble the friggin'... You probably want to assemble your source code, not your binary. So, as we can see down here, buffer store. So this is so that so that I could call up the monitor in Vice, I wanted to know, like I wasn't sure if stuff was going into my buffer storage correctly, into my query buffer. So I set this so that I knew where to look in Vice's monitor to see if it was doing the right things. So that was just a little trick to get that shortcut, so that I didn't have to, dump a whole lot of memory and then kind of count bytes and go, which one is supposed to be my query buffer. Checks if the query buffer is full. This isn't working yet. It seems to stop if I type in too much. At the moment, the buffer length is 40. So you can see argument buffer length is 6. So I tried to restrict it. It seems to stop writing into the buffer when you hit that length, but you can keep typing, which I was kind of hoping it would just kind of stop and go, can't type anymore. So I'm not sure if that's a feature of the character in kernel routine. So I'm going to have to look into that a bit more. I mean, this whole exercise is so that I'm learning about it, right? Not to make the world's greatest monitor, but to learn about these little things and get a sort of a semi-passable monitor with pretty colours. Yeah, so then we go down, we check if it's a valid command, and we do that. I've set up command list of special commands and a command list of normal commands. And I found this was the easiest way to do it, so I set up these are the legal commands, so the command list. So M for memory dump, R for display registers, X for exit. These are going to be for displaying and converting numbers. The special commands are going to be when we read in a whole line, we will put in a prefix, and when we hit enter on that line, it'll read that and go, okay, this does that, this does that. So yeah, first off checks to see if you've entered a valid command. If not, it'll jump out to error. Then I do the argument parsing. So these are in my functions. we check single character command. So it checks for the all. As far as I'm planning at the moment, all the commands will be single character. But I'm checking for where in the query buffer that command is, because it is possible that they might press space a bunch of times, or if they go up to a previous line to run a special command, the command might be elsewhere in the line. So just to give it a bit of leeway there. It'll go through, we extract the arguments. So as you can see, this is long form code, which I'm hoping I'll be able to tidy up, and hence why I only checked for 2 arguments, because I couldn't be bothered typing in or copying and pasting and modifying yet another one. It does things like stores the length of each of the arguments. It's got an argument counter, and then we store the arguments in. So arg0 is the command, and args 1, 2, 3, 4 will be the arguments to the command. I've also made a note down here when I fall through something, just so that it's clear in my mind as I'm writing it. We go through and then we parse the commands, and we say, okay, was the command in R? Jump to the command R function. Was it next? Jump to that. Blah blah blah. That one isn't working yet. So then we've got the errors, and then we've got our command functions down here. So the other thing I was thinking about splitting up was, and this is something I saw in Supermon, I think, where I think that was where I saw it. We took the idea of the different commands, and this is, I've broken it down here into which commands have 0 arguments, which have 1 argument, which have 2 arguments, and again I've noted, so angled brackets is the traditional for a non-optional argument, square brackets is the traditional for optional argument. So this is the maximum number of arguments that these commands can take. So 3 arguments, 4 arguments, and special commands. So I've seen some people break it down into, instead of going, which command did you run, and then in the function reading or parsing the arguments for that command, they've broken it down to say, okay, well, if you've entered this command if you've entered a 0 argument command, don't parse any arguments, just run. If you've only have 1 argument, go to a routine that only checks the first argument. I kind of want to have some error handling to say if they've entered in 2 arguments, it'll throw an error, and maybe that's what that function will do. The 1 argument function will say, if you've entered a 2nd argument, go to error. So the 2 argument functions will go, if you've entered a 3rd argument, go to error. So that's what the plans for that are. Let's jump up the top here. Some of the functions, just some simple stuff. These here, I've got includes which have got, so there's the color codes, so grey, white, yellow, whatever, and that match the C64 color codes, but I've also got S underscore color codes, and those are the screen codes. So the normal color codes, 0 to F, are You use those if you're poking the colour into screen into colour memory, into like D800. But the screen code versions are the PRGs colour codes. So if you type into this PRGs characters and write it to the screen using the kernel character out function, you need the screen codes because you're putting a character onto the screen, which also changes the colour. Print carriage return, print foreground colour. So again, this is just, you run this if I want to change back to the foreground colour. Print a space, printer 1, this is used for my binary. You saw that I do binary conversion when it prints the status registers flags out, prints that in binary. And this is my print binary routine, which used to look like this. I used to go through one bit at a time, and that's what I mean by when I write the stuff out, I'll write it out long form first to get it working, and then, you know, if it's not something that I know how to do easily, or if I've got to think a little bit more about it, or, you know, it takes more planning. So what was it, like Mark Twain said, this letter is long because I didn't have the time to write a short one. You know, you write it out so that it's functional, and then you optimize later. So this is the optimized version. Print a hex number. What did I do? Oh yes, so sometimes in some routines I will see this one here, I'm stashing it into temporary bytes. So this is into memory locations. And that's usually because I want to reuse the X and Y registers. I think, or sometimes I push stuff to the stack using transfer A to X or to Y might be unsafe here because the caller might be in a loop, right? So if it's likely that this function has been called in another loop where the X and Y registers are being used, I'll push stuff onto the stack for temporary use rather than messing with those other registers. What have I got? Print memory. So this is what print does, that memory dump. Again, I've actually pushed everything onto the stack because this is going to be using all the registers. So yeah, it goes through and it will print 8 bytes at a time. So Y is the did I write that down? Probably should comment that. I made it so that was X, Y. So Y must be the number of lines, and X is the number of bytes. I think that it's going to print because it prints 8 bytes. That doesn't sound right. Early Y, we're decrementing Y, compare it to 8. What? Early Y, incrementing Y, comparing to 8. Anyway. Sometimes if I haven't looked at code for more than an hour, I forget what I've done. Which is why I tend to comment the stuff out of it for me, not for you guys. But obviously it will help you guys too. Yeah, and I've gone over the checking and extracting arguments. So that's kind of it. That's kind of where I'm at the moment. I'll see how it goes. I like this is, you know, this was a detour I took from demo coding, which I guess is still down a rabbit hole, just a different one. Anyway, let me know what you think. Let me know your thoughts on some of these, feedback on some of those ideas I've had. As I said, I will get this up on GitHub, just not timed with this video. It'll probably be in a future video. Once I've done a little bit more to it, once I've got the command line parsing properly, that's like as I put down in here, this is 0.0 alpha. Where am I? So maybe when I get it to 0.0 beta, I'll put the code up for you guys to have a look at. But hopefully this has been enough that you can kind of see through what I'm doing. Anyway, let me know what you think, and we'll talk to you next time. Thanks for watching.